faith-based organization, maybe the fear factor for them is kind of taken away. But our basic and ultimate goal is to help these girls get back to a better place in life.
Have you seen some successes?
Yeah.
We've been doing this since January.
Okay.
And police.
Right.
And it has been a tremendous learning experience. Tremendous learning.
What's the most important thing you've learned?
That women share similar experiences, no matter what their socioeconomic level, no matter what, we share similar experiences, and our willingness to want to nurture and take care of men, unfortunately, is our downfall. So unless you have healthy relationships, we are all susceptible to being victimized in some type of way. So that has really been an eye-opener. But it's also the strength of women and how strong we are and how some of these women we see can survive out there on the street homeless, but they still come in here with a smile on their face. They have not presented any problems, and they're trying to do the best they can to get themselves back to a more stable place. And we've seen some growth. Church membership, we've seen some join the church. It's been amazing.
Good. That's wonderful. And how many girls do you usually have to leave?
We've had as few as 10, and we've had many as 8. Last month we had about 50.
That's impressive. You're obviously doing something right. And they're hearing a message there that they need to hear.
Yeah. And we love them. That's the thing. When they come in here, it's not judgment. And I think that's what they get from a lot of women, and that's what hurts them a lot, is the judgment of other women. They don't expect much from men, because they know men are the brutalizers, but when women kind of disregard it, that's what hurts them.
That's such a good point you bring out, because women need to be compassionate
with each other. Yes.
Now, if you had a wish list, I know you want to say that.
Yes.
What else do you want?
We have envisioned having, if we could have it daily, we would be ecstatic. A place for our ladies, our sisters, to come in and just sit, talk, be nurtured, take a shower, or just take it. And interestingly, Sheila mentioned that when they do come in, and some of them do want to take a shower, they are in the shower a long time.
Must feel wonderful.
It must feel wonderful. And so they're in there a long time, and we don't put a limit on it. They could be in there half an hour if they need to, because it's that cleansing that's going on. We know that it's more than the water. You can see it, you can feel it. And so, but just a place for them to come, know that they are loved and cared about, and that they can receive hope, that it doesn't have to be this way all the time. So if the ultimate dream is absolutely a house, a safe house. And then a component of that would be to have a place for them to come on a daily basis.
To get some hot soup or a blanket or something.
Or love.
Just a hug. We do that a lot.
Someone who looks you in your eye and they're not wanting something from you or condemning you, who will see you, just being seen as a person, acknowledged as a human being, means a lot.
We're such social creatures, and we need each other.
Yes, we do.
And I love what you guys are doing. Let me just say, there are 463 churches in Oakland.
There are. Wow.
I didn't know how many, but that's a lot.
Wow.
That's a lot. So there are a lot down here. What if each church just took one of these girls?
Oh my God.
Nurtured them.
It'd be amazing. It would be amazing.
Yeah. We could turn this around. And, it's just such a such a terrible thing to happen to a spirit of a young girl. Anybody.
It crushes them.
It crushes them.
It crushes their spirit.
I think that's a really good point, though, because we are planning to do more collaboration because it's very difficult to make an impact. And we are very grateful because we've seen that in our situation. But if, let's say, every church within the 20-block radius said that we're going to make sure that these girls can come in, know that they're loved and cared about. If each church would make that commitment,
and to one or two girls,
yeah,
and kind of foster that, and have the congregation accept it.
Yeah.
Isn't one of the tenets love thy neighbor?
Yes.
And our deeds are neighbors.
And the Bible also says that when you have done it to one of the least of these, you've done it to me. That's what Jesus said. And so we are definitely a Christian organization, and that's one of our scriptures, that when you've done it to one of the least of these, someone who is so left out and not cared about, that we're doing it as unto the Lord.
What would you like to say?
I'd just like to say that when they come into our midst, these women are not judged. We look at them as sisters, as partners in our greater community of Christ. So they're not looked upon as anything dirty. They're looked upon as a vessel of love and something God created. So we don't want them to feel any type of way that we're in any type of judgment, because we are all sinners saved by grace.
And it's not what Christianity is
And
all
that's
about.
exactly what Christianity is all about. And I just think love is the basis for everything that we do. It is.
And they're not responsible for the position that they're in.
No.
Their children.
Yes,
Their children.
their children.
And they didn't cause it. No one chooses the family that they're born in. They didn't choose it. A child does not choose to be trafficked.
No.
That's not a choice.
No.
Who chooses slavery?
Right.
No one chooses that. And so we make it abundantly clear that they are not responsible for the situation that they're in. It's not their fault. And children easily feel that,
They take on the world on their own.
They do. And so it's very clear, we make it clear that it's not their fault. We have had situations where young girls, women, come in and they don't have clothing.
They're unclothed.
They're unclothed, and all we do is, thank God we can show you if you have time, our storage. We call it the closet. And they can come and get whatever. They can take a shower. They can get clothing. And when they get clothing, it makes such a difference. You can see it in their countenance. It just makes a difference.
Right. Because these girls would never choose to be sitting in a hotel room with 15 men coming in and out. That is not a choice that no one would ever choose to be abused and raped in that type of way. So we really got to get this out of our heads. These children are choosing to do these, and they're just loose girls, and they just immoral. No, this is not the case. This is manipulation by the adults who are totally responsible for what's happening to them.
Any final things that you would like to say or add? This has been a wonderful information and interesting for all of us to be much more aware of child sex trafficking.
We saw, Sheila and I saw an application for prostitute or for someone, now we say sex trafficking, but this is an older application. And on the application, it had part of the job description. It broke my heart, but
can you imagine writing down on a piece of paper husband saying this is what you have to do?
When you take the job, you don't really know how much you're going to get paid. You can ask for whatever. But it's all dependent upon your literally presenting your body to be used in any way the perpetrator chooses, whether they want to stick something in you in any part of your body that they choose, whether they want to use any part of the body that they choose. It's sick. And so what we're totally clear about, and we want to make clear, is that this is not a choice. This is not a choice that they make. This is not a choice. And so as women and as mothers and nurturers of girls, of boys too, but right now our ministry is focusing on females. We hope to expand to include boys as well, because they, and men really who do this, they have some issues, deep-seated issues. And someone needs to address that as well. But, but we try to make clear to the women and girls that we are blessed to work with, and we see that as a blessing.
Do you see some of these girls today that have found Christ and changed their lives? Or is that too deep for them? They can't quite get there.
It's a little deep, and these are such layers and layers. But they are work in progress, just like we all are. We see tremendous just recidivism. They come back and forth every month. So they're feeling this camaraderie with us. And I think the final thing I'd really like to say is that our paradigm needs to shift.
Yeah.
And we need to start looking at each other as human beings, as creations of God, and as value. And if there is anywhere you see that someone is being devalued, please don't be afraid and step in, even if it's just to make a phone call.
Right. Well, I want to thank you ladies so much. This has been very enlightening. And perhaps Rebecca has a final comment that she would like to make.
I'm really hoping that we, all of us who care, can expand and in the not too distant future get shelters and safe houses across the United States that aren't just a haven, but that have psychological and emotional professional care, that have deprogramming for trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, and various forms of distress and everything that goes with it, that have deprogramming from cults that traffic girls in the name of religion and terrify them with a bloodthirsty and terrifying God. So we need safe houses that don't just help for the moment. We need to educate those girls on how they can become self-supporting and gain their self-respect. And if they're moms, we need to help them get jobs and have daycare available. And isn't it interesting that we have all this funding in the United States going on, and we're overlooking one of the biggest problems in our nation? And I want to thank you women for your brave. Yes, a growing problem. It's getting worse and worse and worse. We have become a nation of slavery, and that is exactly what it is. This is slavery. We have 1 out of 3 girls raped, 1 out of 7 boys raped. And yet those are just the ones reported. Those are not the kids that are trafficked in the name of religion. Somehow we've thrown a cloak over that and made it magically untouchable. Freedom of religion never should include loss of human rights. This is America. We're equal here, and if we don't stand up and be counted, we are going to be in more serious trouble as a nation than we already are. Can't thank you women enough for coming forth. Greatly appreciate it.
We really appreciate the opportunity to speak for those who can't speak for themselves.
Thank you so much, because so many women out there being trafficked are terrified to help themselves because they feel they're an island and no one cares about them because they take on the guilt for what has been done to them, and that is not correct. You're beautiful in spirit and in body and mind, and I truly appreciate your assistance in educating the public on this matter. Thank you so much. Our guest today is Annie O'Sullivan. Annie is the author of this marvelous book. This book has changed the lives of a lot of people. The title of this book, Can You Hear Me Now? Annie dared to not only speak, but to write about a very inconvenient truth. Hi, Annie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Delighted to have you here. It'll be my voice behind the camera. Annie, your book had a tremendous effect on people because you openly and honestly approached the child abuse that you survived, the sexual abuse, the cruelty that you survived at the hands of your own father. These family secrets are seldom told. Children that are abused are numerous. So many of your readers identified with what you said. Tell us, Annie, where you got the courage to say it at all.
Oh, years of therapy. And that actually has turned out to be more true than anyone would imagine. When I first started therapy, I still couldn't say it out loud. I ended up in a hospital for almost 2 months, and I was on disability for 2 years. And in the beginning, all I had to say was my father molested me, and it's not my fault. And they put me in this little room, and I would sit there with a couple of doctors and a couple of nurses. And this was in the hospital. I was in a perfectly safe setting. I was so distraught when they took me. It was a mental health hospital. I was so distraught by the time I was there that they literally had to take me down the hallways and show me that the doors were locked. There were double doors you couldn't get through. Then you had to get through the nurse's station. Then you had to get back to my ward. And I really needed to know that I was safe. But they would put me in this room. That was how I felt. I'm sure it wasn't quite that, but that's how it felt. It felt like they put me in this little room, and I would sit in this little stool with these medical people and mental health providers, and they would encourage me. I couldn't say it out loud. I couldn't even say what happened to me. I would write a little couple of sentences and hand it, so afraid that I was going to offend someone with my story that I would actually hand the therapist a little piece of paper that had some note on it, and she would start to ask me questions, and I could shake my head yes or no.
You said, I was so afraid I was going to offend someone with my story.
Absolutely.
Tell us what compels the victim to be terrified to speak their truth.
You are taught from day one not to tell. In my particular case, and I have found it over the years to be very common, they're going to hurt me, maybe kill me. In my family, death was a certain threat. They threaten to get, if you have other family members, maybe you have a younger sister or a younger brother, and they use that as if you tell, I'm going to get another family member. If you tell, your mother will hate you. No one will speak to you. No one will believe you because you're just a kid. And it was reinforced in my house that the beatings were quite severe. And we had talked earlier about the time that I was in high school, and the high school counselor had called, and he didn't know what was going on at my house. He just knew that something wasn't right with me. And by the time I'd gotten home from school, this counselor, unbeknownst to me, the counselor had called, and
My father beat me so bad I didn't go to school for a week. And that was just because, not because I told, but because I did anything at all that caused them to scrutinize my family.
So you were held hostage for the public image of your family, and it was you who was wrong by destroying that image if you told anything that was an inconvenient truth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I hear different, well, since I wrote the book, I hear different variations of that story all the time. As an adult, one of my brothers told me I was ruining the family name. He got right in my face and he put his finger up and said, you are ruining the family name. You have to stop this.
So it's your fault.
My fault. Still, it's still my fault.
It's your fault that you were beaten and raped.
Yeah, because I was bartered off. Those drunk, nasty old men. Well, I was pretty worthless to my father by the time I was 16, 17 years old. He'd lost interest. He needed more young kids. He sold me as a virgin. I think I was like 3. I wasn't a virgin. There wasn't anything innocent about me at 14, 15 years old. He would sell me as a virgin. One man got really angry when he found out I wasn't, and took it out on me. So now, you're not getting just beat up by your parents and your family. It's outside the house too. It's all reinforced. I mean, the things that they do to these kids, it's a reinforcement.
You mentioned when you were a kid, a child bride, the hours that you worked and you got no wages and they just worked you and took the money. They also did other things that took money. For example, didn't you have a sister wife that had children and they actually took her children and got...
Oh, yeah. The reason why I didn't have children is because he wanted me as a workhorse, the breadwinner. I was 113 pounds, 5'5". So he wanted me for the sex machine. So I'd have to put up with his sexual abuse all the night long and then work all the day long. The second wife, she had children. The first wife was the one with the marriage certificate. What she'd say is, well, I'm going to claim that these children are mine, that I had them, was Zella. So she had this little baby, Kathleen, and the very day that she was born, this was told by the husband, I'm going to give this little baby to my first wife. She's going to record it as her baby and the birth certificate and everything else. And Zella just become irate. She's still laying there in the bed. She's still bleeding from having this baby. A half hour has only passed. And I'm watching all this, and she says, well, you can't steal my baby. The old sucker says, well, it's not your baby. It's my baby. She says, well, it's my baby too. He says, no more than if a man puts a quarter in a Coke machine and the Coke comes out. You can't say that Coke belongs to the machine, but it belongs to the man that put in the quarter. And she says, well, I'm going to go to the law then. And he came over and he grabbed the hair on her head and they shook it. And he says, listen here to me. If you dare to go to the law, I will tell them that you're insane. They'll take one look at you with that screwy eye, which she always had an eye that would look off to the side, and they'll know that I'm telling the truth. They'll know that you're absolutely nuts, and they'll believe me, and they'll believe Francis. They're not going to believe you. And then the old sucker had his helper, which is this guy that was always sucking up to him, and he says, now, when this little girl gets to be 15 years old, you can take her for a wife. And Billy says, okay. And he says, this is your reward for you working for me for all these years and helping my family. Billy said, okay. Like, wow, this is great. And I remember I was standing by the door jam, and I had chewed off every damn one of my fingernails, right down to the quick, to the blood. It was an experience I'd never forget. The look on her face, him shaking her, grabbing her hair and shaking her head and hollering at her when she was still bleeding from having the baby, and having this proud, arrogant first wife rejoicing in the fact that now this little baby was going to be called hers. And now why did she want these children? Now, see, she had the mother there, which was held by the chain of, if you ever leave, I will keep your kids. So she's now a servant. She's got to stay there and be Frances a slave and take care of those children. But Frances could get welfare assistance for every child that she had. And then when she'd get all this government assistance, she would go off with Billy, and they'd go visit relatives and go on trips and stuff like that. And so Zella's left home taking care of the babies, changing the diapers. When the little girl was like 3 years old, and she come up, and she said something like wah wah or something like that to Zella, you know, who was standing by the sink, like I wanted a drink of water. And Frances said, "That little girl just called you mother, didn't she?" And Zella said, "No, she didn't." She says, "Yes, she did." And she backhanded her right across the face and whop. She said, "Well, no, she didn't." She says, "Damn you, don't you lie to me. You don't ever have that little kid call you mother." So then she goes in and gets the big sucker. He comes in, and, well, he's walking 90 miles an hour. He was taking the belt right out of his pants, and he started whipping her, Zella, across the face. And she put up her arm to protect her face, and she had these big welts on her arms. And he says, "Put down your arms." And she says, "No, you'll hit my face." And he says, "Put down your arms, damn you." And he just kept beating her. When it was all over with, Zella had these puffy eyes, and all she could see was these little slits, you know. She looked like a prize fighter. That's how badly she'd been beaten. And she had all these bruises all over her face and her arms.
Was Kathleen married to Billy?
Oh, yeah. 5 months after I got out of there, somebody came upstairs and said, "I want you to know that Kathleen has just had a baby." But Kathleen she wouldn't do anything to defend herself because she was so programmed that this is the way it was going to be. Without her wanting to leave, there was nothing they could do. I just felt bad. And I attended her funeral here about a month ago.
She was given to him, promised him on the day she was born. How old was she when
That is right. I don't know. I think he started having sex with her when she was like, I don't know if it was 15 or 16. I can't remember. That's the way it went, and nobody challenges these guys.
If you would like more information, go to traffickingmap.org. That will give you lots of information. Also, there's a hotline, and the number is 1-888-3737-888. That is the hotline for child sex trafficking. And if you want to contact us, we are at safekidsnow.com. And thank you for listening.